All right, let's continue our bouncing ball. All right, so let's go ahead and select this guy here. I'm going to hit W and Shift to duplicate. And what you'll notice is with the duplicate, when I do it that way, it doesn't copy any of the animations, and that's what I want. I'm going to go ahead and hit R and scale this up a little bit. This ball is going to serve as my heavy object. And actually this one, what I want to do is, you see this black line here? I'm going to expand this up. I'm in the animation mode here. And on Translate Y, I want to make sure that when it hits the ground, I'm going to middle mouse click this, that it's sitting right on the line here for a second. And now when I go through this, there we go. You can see it hits the line on every frame. All right, now for my heavy object, what we want to do is, I'm going to do a bouncing ball, but a lot of people, if I were to ask you, say this is a bowling ball and this is a tennis ball. If I was to drop both of these from a building, what would which one would hit first? Logically, you'd say, well, of course the bowling ball is going to hit the ground first, but in reality, they both fall at the same time, and it really doesn't matter how heavy the object is. If they're both falling from a building, they'll hit the ground at the same time. So it could be, like I saw a video where they talked about dropping a piano or a golf ball. They both hit the ground at the same time. So the way that we show how an object is heavier in animation is through ease in and ease out. Let's take a look at how to do that. All right, what I'd like to also do is, on this guy here, I want to start him off sort of in the air. So maybe start him off here. I'm going to move that over to frame 1. I'm going to delete this key, and I'm going to pull this down just a little bit like this. And let's see how that looks when we play that. I'm going to hit Alt and V, or I'm sorry, Alt and yeah, V to play that. It's kind of floaty coming down. It might need to maybe hit a little harder as it's coming down. And that looks okay. These might need to be adjusted a little bit more. Too flat. And I know we were kind of looking at rate of decline, and that's what's going to help us also to show the difference in weight. Okay, so let's go back here to 1, and I'm going to delete this key here. Oops, that looks like the key we need. Let's see, what here is, oh, the rest of these are all, I'm going to delete all those keys on anything but Translate Y. And actually we need Translate X here. So let's see, that's our moving across. So if I delete this, and then we move this one up, something like this. Let's adjust that. Our handles here. There we go. Let's watch that again. Yeah, that's way too floaty. Let's move that out like this a little bit. Hopefully that should not be so floaty. I'm going to pull all these down just a little bit, speed up that bounce. All right, so, and actually I think I'm going to leave that just a little bit like this for now, and then we'll speed that up later because I want to show um, how these guys sort of fall at the same kind of rate. So if they're both sort of being tossed off here, even though this is a bit higher, it should be on top of it, but just for demonstration purposes. So here's our ball, our bowling ball. And if it helps us, we can just name this B ball, and then T ball for tennis ball. Actually, you know what we can do is just set it behind it, just so they're sitting at the same. All right, so I'm going to set a key on 1 here, and then I'm going to pan all the way to 10 or rather 20 is when it hits first, and I'm going to just move this down here. And I'm going to go ahead and straighten out this angle here. So now they fall at the same rate when I play that. Alt V. You can see they hit at the same time. Now, what I want you to notice is this. Is it falling at the same rate? Like notice that this ball's starting to beat this one before it hits the ground. So that's why when we go in here, I want to break these handles. So let's break this guy and this one. And as it's falling, I'm going to grab this handle and I'm going to pull it up just a little bit like this. And doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, but I want it to fall at the same rate. All right, so let's watch that. Boom. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so let's transform this ball. So we remember that on this ball here, it goes all the way to frame 60. So I'm going to grab this one. Remember, it's keyed here on 1. I'm going to go all the way to 60. And then on the x-axis here, I'm just going to slide it all the way, maybe just behind it here because it starts off just behind it. So boom, as it falls, it should hit at the same rate, and then we'll add all the other good stuff. And we got to make sure that it also, when we get to the easing in and easing out of the ball, the object here, remember that's what I told you. That's how we're going to show weight is on how it eases in and eases out. So if we look at this, we want it to sort of ease in as it's coming through. So see that how far it goes before it hits 60 on translate X. So that's what we want to be conscious of. So if we go the opposite direction, so wait, well, first, if we flatten that out, that's what we should always do first, just to sort of check out what it's like. And now I press play. You can see it's moving at an even rate. See that? And if we ease this in, or ease it out and then ease it in, notice that we're sort of accelerating the path that it's traveling on, right? And it's rolling back, which is interesting because it looks like we have, let's see if we have any other keys that we don't want in there. I don't know if we need these other rotation keys, but let's see. Now, if I make this key here, I want to show you linear. So if we go over here, we flatten that key out. Look what happens as we're coming in this way. You already feel like it has more weight as it hits based on that slide. I'm going to pull this down a little bit more because we shouldn't be beating the ball. And actually, if it's heavier, we sort of want it to, see it hits at the same time. I'm going to pull it way down. There we go. So you could already see, but when I play this, it has a lot more weight. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how our curves are going to look based on a light, heavy, and medium ball, right? So like a ping pong ball, which is very light, versus a basketball versus um, a bowling ball, which is heavy. All right. So what you get is something like this. So for a heavy ball, your rate of decline is going to fall like this. This is for a heavy ball. For a medium ball, you're going to get something that looks more flat like this, like a basketball. So this is a medium ball. For a light ball, you're going to get a rate of decline that looks more like uh, the Shad Bradbury, like he calls it, the McDonald's curve. So this light ball is going to have more of a upward curve like this. Okay. So let's take a look at the difference because this is more of a medium. Like if I was going to say this would be more of a basketball or medium ball. And so let's go ahead and add some keys to this heavy ball here. All right, so now that we know that our rate of decline, let's draw that out really one more time. For that big ball is going to look something like this, right? We're just going to kind of flatten out, opposed to which we, our basketball, which is like, say this is the bottom edge where it falls, is going to look like that. Let's go ahead and knock that out. So with this, first we're going to set up our initial poses. So we know it hits the floor on 20 here. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of go over to 1. And you could do this by hitting Alt less than right then keys to, and I'm just going to move this up a little bit here. On 22, it falls on the floor again. So left click on 20. I'm going to click my middle mouse on 22 to hit S to set a key to kind of lock that in. So we have one jump here. And then with this one, because we have a total of, 1, 2, 3, and 4 bounces, we're going to add we're going to add 4 more bounces. So we have 2 bounces here. And then let's go to 23. I'm going to move that up a little bit in the air. And then we're going to adjust all this stuff. And then it's back down on the floor on 24. So here's our second bounce, our third bounce, and then we're going to add 1 more bounce on 25. And then it's back on the floor on 26. So we set our initial poses, right? So if we watch this, we can see it hits the ball, it's bouncing in place, and it slides. And so we want to go ahead and work on our timing a little bit. So maybe if it hits the first time, it's not going to bounce because it's heavier ball as far out and as many as I'm sorry, it's not going to translate that far on the x-axis like our other ball. It's just going to translate. So maybe we'll move our timing here, all of these guys out by 6 frames, right? So I'm going to grab all of these and just sort of shift them over. And then what I did is I held shift, selected all, and left clicked and dragged to grab my red marquee here to grab all of them. So I'm going to grab this guy, and maybe on 20, I'm going to start this one off. And I could just kind of break this up. The first one starts off at, let's say 4 frames. So we're at 24 here. Grab this guy, put it on 24, and then 2 frames later on 26, it lands. And if you remember on this ball, we had this sort of evenly spaced out. Here's 20, and then 8 frames later, it was here. And then if you add another 8 frames, we landed here. So we should really do the same thing here. So we do 4 frames here, and then I'm going to move 26 over to 28, actually the down here. So here we are on 20, 24, 28. And then we'll do 4 frames for the next one. So that's 32. So let's go ahead and drag these guys over here. I'm going to grab this one to 32. And then I'm going to drop this one, just shift it over to 36. So we're over 4 frames, 4 frames. Yeah, so we went over 4 frames and went over another 4 frames. And then maybe we'll do 2 frames on this one. So we'll move this to 30. Or actually, you know what we should do? Let's grab these. Let's just shift these over 6 frames. So 26 here. So it's a little bit longer of a bounce, 26. And then we'll move this one to 32. So there's our timing, 32. And then we'll go 4 from this one. So that would be 36. There we go. That's what I want to do. And then this one would be on 40. And then I'm only guessing at this point. So 40, and then this is 42. And then this would be 44 when it lands again. So let's see how that looks. So just hitting Alt and V. That might be too, this definitely probably needs to be. And it looks like my translation's not going all the way across. So I want to make sure that on Translate X, I get rid of all of these guys in here. So that way it translates a little evenly. Let's see, Alt V. Okay, now my spacing is garbage. You can see because it's bouncing higher at the end and not bouncing much at all in the beginning. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to go to my Translate Y here. And this is really awful. And it should still have that even rate of decline, even though it's curving in like this. So this should be higher, obviously, than these guys. These should be lower, but I'm not getting much of a bounce anyway on that. So let's exaggerate that just a little bit. So on Y, I'm just sort of pulling these guys up. Let's watch that. That's much better. And I'm going to go ahead and just break all of these handles here, like this, and just work on that easing in and out. So just as a general rule, go ahead and add those nice M's like this, and then we'll control the easing in it and easing out. So something like this. There we go. That's looking a lot better. I think that pretty much covers it. I don't like the distance that these two are traveling though, because they're way too floaty. So I'm just going to select both of these and then grab Translate X, and you can see they both start on the same frame here and end on the same frame. So like if we grab this first one and we just sort of shift it forward, maybe even to frame 10, let's see how fast that fall looks. It's not bad. And then this one needs, let's see, starts on 10 and I think it's kind of weird that it kind of like doesn't start moving till here, but there's no other keys back here on this guy. Um, oh, there's a key here. Let's get rid of that. Oh, that's our y-axis. Okay, so let's see how they both look on the y. Yeah, they're both his y. Looks like we need to work on that a little bit more. Ah, here's the culprit right here. I might translate X on this one. He's already there. So if I delete, let's go ahead and delete this key. Boom. Oops. Yeah, let's delete this key on translate X and see what happens. Yeah, now they both do that weird fall off thing. So I think I'm going to start, both their translates Y. I'm going to shift all this over to frame 10. And it's going to screw it up a little bit, but let's lock that. But I'm holding shift and right clicking. So now let's see what they got on frame Y1 here. Just delete that key. So essentially if we start our animation off on 10, that should move at a lot quicker rate. So I could probably grab all of these keys for both of them, hold shift and left click, and just drag them all the way over to 1 now. And now when I press play, hopefully that didn't screw it up too much. No, there you go. Yeah, so now there's that weirdness is gone. It looks pretty good. And yeah, I'm going to end this one here.